The Doctor. In the TARDIS. Next stop, everywhere.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS once again, and joining us once again is one of our best and favoritist companions, special guest companions, Christine Peruski. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere.
You flatterer.
Well, you're so great on this show. I love having you on, and this is your third time here, and I'm just really excited to talk more Doctor Who with you.
Do I get a prize?
Well, maybe when you hit the 5 Timers Club. We'll get
5 timers.
We'll get you a special jacket or something, maybe that you've.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we'll try. Maybe maybe we could get you a free Next Stop Everywhere T-shirt if you want it. We could do that.
Oh, I like the jacket idea. Maybe a hoodie?
The jacket's a little more schway. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, welcome back, and obviously here at episode 138, we're going to talk A Good Man Goes to War, which is, of course, a Matt Smith episode, because we haven't talked Matt Smith for a good while, and Christine, of course, has been on Next Stop Everywhere before, where we've talked the Shakespeare Code, and we've talked Planet of the Dead. But just to prove to me that she can talk more than just David Tennant, we're going to talk some Matt Smith, and I'm really looking forward to this. So I hope all of you out there in podcast land are as well. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not all about Tennant. I love Matt Smith equally, and I'm loving Whittaker just as equally as well. So
yes, good. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Jodie Whittaker era, and cannot wait for Series 12. Whenever it arrives sometime within the next millennia. Fingers crossed. But in the meantime, we're going to talk Matt Smith. And, of course, this was the 7th episode of Series 6 that aired way back in 2011. So this episode's putting on 8 years of mileage already, if you can believe it.
You're making me feel old.
I'm right there with you. This... are you kidding? I used to watch Doctor Who in the 80s, so I probably feel old enough for both of us.
That's true.
Yeah, so showing my mileage. But this was written by Stephen Moffat, of course, because River Song's his baby, and directed by Peter Hoare. And this was, obviously, most notable because, for one, it introduces the Paternoster Gang of Madame Vastra, Jenny Flint, and Skaggs, and also finally reveals the true identity of River Song, which, of course, we find out through the course of the episode. Spoilers, is Melody Pond. And that's obviously a big revelation that probably shocked quite a number of people back in the day.
Yeah.
Did it shock you back in the day when you first watched this?
I had a weird reaction.
Or did it confirm your suspicions about River?
I didn't really have suspicions about River. I was just like, well, huh? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. Wait, does this work? So it took me a while to get used to this.
So you were kind of thrown by the whole timey-wiminess of it.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of timey-wiminess with River Song, but...
Right. So wait, the woman that the Doctor flirts with is actually the daughter of Amy Rory? Oh, I don't know. My brain explode. Yeah.
Because this iteration of the Doctor and Amy and Rory, he feels kind of like the immature best friend, or maybe sometimes even kind of like a son. So, the idea that there's a little hookup there with their daughter.
Right.
It felt like an equal maturity level going on.
Well, so the way I kind of see it, I mean, I see kind of like maybe Amy and Rory seeing the Doctor as their like wacky uncle.
There's that too.
But it does kind of feel a little too in the family for comfortable's sake. That that
made you uncomfortable?
Well, just the idea that they were like this sort of unofficial family, and then River comes along and starts flirting with the Doctor, and then there's the big revelation that hey, she's Amy and Rory's kid, so it gets a little weird. To me, at least, it felt a little weird.
Well, for me, he always it's what I like about him. He's kind of the immature version, right. And it felt okay. Like especially when he realizes it and nobody else in the room realizes it. He has that like ridiculous little kid reaction, and so I felt like that just totally washed away any uncomfortableness for me.
That's good. That's good because that was when I was doing my rewatch. I noticed just Matt's reaction or Matt's performance in that scene that you're talking about, and just this childlike wonder, but then also kind of like, and this is kind of Matt's Doctor, is that he also at the same time of being a child, he has there's a puppy, and there's an old man type approach as well. So he kind of crisscrosses back and forth from that. Like 1 second he's an old man and in a child's or a younger man's body, and this he's lived for like thousands of years, and then another time he's just like this kid experiencing the universe for the first time. This childlike wonder, and that's one of the great things about Matt's Doctor, I think.
He kind of flips around.
Yeah, he does. Like sometimes he speaks with such maturity and authority, and this weight of the centuries upon him, and then other times he's so naively childlike and innocent, especially when you bring up the subject of girls and romance
in this episode.
Yes, yeah, he's all over the place. This is almost like a tour de force for Matt Smith in this episode. You kind of get a lot of his range in this episode. All right. So, little trivia on this one. I think you had brought up that you were a little confused, if I recall correctly, about the Paternoster Gang continuity.
Actually, a few characters. There's a lot of characters presented in this episode as if we've seen them before.
Right.
But we actually haven't.
Right. Yes. So, the obviously, in addition to River, who we've met before, we get Frances Barber as Madame Kovarian, who is kind of like the recurring villain of Series 6. And then, she was in other episodes like Day of the Moon, The Wedding of River Song, etc. But then we get the introduction of Nev McIntosh as Madame Vastra. And she's most notable because she played the twin Silurians, Alea and Restak, in The Hungry Earth, Cold Blood in Matt's first season.
So that's why she looks familiar.
Right, but it's not the same character. It's just the same actress. They just gave her a more meatier Silurian role in Madame Vastra.
And that was just really confusing.
Yeah, but she's also done things like Ripper Street on BBC America, and then she was on an episode of NBC's short-lived Dracula series with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, if you remember that one. And
I think I did watch that one. Yeah,
I watched that too. I thought it was pretty cool, but it didn't last very long. Katrine Stewart, who plays Jenny Flint, she's also introduced in this first as kind of Madame Vastra's maid, but then we kind of find out she's a little bit more to Vastra. She has a little bit more of a closer relationship, as eventually we find out that hey, she's Vastra's wife in this. So it's like she's a wife, but yet she also works as the maid. So I'm not quite sure how that works.
It's a very weird and unique dynamic.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, granted it was the 19th century, but it does seem a little, I don't know, not so progressive relationship that they have.
It works in the time.
Yeah, exactly. We also get the introduction of Dan Starkey as Strax. And I know you kind of mentioned that he might be, like a previous Santaran character that was introduced on
Yeah.
the Sarah Jane Adventures.
What was that? The
That was
last Santaran?
Yeah, that was it was the Man Who Never Was, and that was a Santaran named Plark in that episode.
Aha.
So, so yeah, he was Santaran before, and he does play a lot of Santarans on Doctor Who, but
Which makes sense.
which again, but yeah, kind of like with Nev McIntosh, just same actor, similar role, but not the same character. So it does get a little confusing if you're not paying close attention.
They really are trying to confuse the hell out of us.
Well, they're just testing you. They're like, okay, let's see if you're paying attention really closely.
I mean, they succeeded.
Yeah, and Dan Starkey's obviously gone on to a lot of things in Doctor Who. He played another Santaran named Score in the Santaran stratagem, The Poison Sky, from the David Tennant era, that reintroduced the Santaras to the modern era. But you can explain that away as like that maybe Score and Strax are part of the same clone batch. So that makes perfect sense why they look alike. And then he also played another Santaran named Jask in The End of Time, David Tennant's final story. He's the one, of course, that's kind of like ready to kind of take out Mickey and Martha, and then the Doctor shows up and stops that. Yeah, and then he also played an elf, Ian, in Last Christmas, a Peter Capaldi era story.
Aha.
So, which is kind of interesting.
I'm trying to remember what story that was.
That was
so
that was the Christmas story where you had Nick Frost as Santa Claus with the kind of alien face hugger type aliens that caused the dreaming, but you found out that the creatures that were on their faces were feeding off their life force. That thing.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
This is when right after Danny died. Danny Pink died.
Yeah, so the episode that wasn't exactly real, but kind of was real.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a kind of a like dreamy weemy to kind of put a phrase on the timey wimey.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I thought it was a fun little Christmas special. So he was in that as well. So yeah, he's obviously, and he's done a lot of Big Finish audios as Santarans and other characters. So he's pretty major contributor to Doctor Who. We also have Simon Fisher Becker as Dorian Maldivar.
This one we did see in a previous episode.
We did, because he was in the Pandorica Opens. So that's where you saw him before, as he was introduced briefly. But here he gets a much more notable role. And he ends up later in other episodes like The Wedding of River Song. And he's most notable because in the Harry Potter films, he played the Fat Friar in the first Harry Potter film. In the UK, of course, it was Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. But here in the US, it was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
That was like a 3-second shot.
It was a 3-second cameo, but he's in it. So, and you can easily see him because he's there, presented right in the middle of the screen, so you can't miss him. But yeah, he's the Fat Friar in that. So one of the ghosts in Hogwarts. It's kind of cool. A little trivia bit. Christina Chung, who played Lorna Bucket in this story, she's been in episodes of 24, Live Another Day, and she was on an episode of Black Mirror, the anthology series, and a favorite BBC series of mine, Whitechapel, that was on not too long ago. Very good drama series that aired on BBC America. We get the return of Hugh Bonneville as Henry Avery from The Curse of the Black Spot. And of course, he's famous, if you're a Downton Abbey fan, as Lord Grantham from Downton Abbey.
Sadly, haven't watched that show.
You haven't watched Downton Abbey?
Sorry.
It's a good show. Actually, I've watched it with my wife. It's really good. Looking forward to the movie. And he was also in James Bond movie Tomorrow Never Dies as one of the British battleship captains that features early on in the episode on the Yorkshire, if you remember that movie.
You do love making those Bond connections.
There's a lot of Bond connections in Doctor Who. You have to admit, because of all these British actors, just over the years, we found so many Bond connections with Doctor Who. And this is another one. So for those of you playing the drinking game at home, take a drink and go with it. So
we have well-established rules for this drinking game.
Yeah, exactly. As I'm drinking Dr. Pepper because, hey, I'm driving. So,
Ooh, going somewhere. Take me.
That'll happen after that. That's the post-podcast fun. That's the after party.
Ah.
We'll have the podcast after party. But that's our pretty notable guest cast for this episode, unless I missed anything during your research.
Oh, no, I was mostly researching characters and their history.
Okay, all right.
I left the actor stuff up to you.
Okay, well, that's it. So for all you trivia buffs, there's your rundown. So you don't have to go on IMDb now. I just laid it out for you. Saved you all that trouble. We had a prequel to this story before we get into the main story that I want to talk about briefly. I know I'm kind of jumping off the agenda a little bit. But we had, this was like a couple of minute preview or prequel. This was where, before we get talking about Dorium, we kind of see him talking with two headless monks, which kind of like leads us into the episode of how his connection to the headless monks. It gives a little backstory with that. And in that story, this was released on May 28th, 2011. So just like probably a few days before Good Man Goes to War is released. And
what was this called?
It's just called the prequel to A Good Man Goes to War.
Oh.
There's no special name for this one. Sometimes they gave these little mini episodes titles, sometimes they didn't. So the unofficial title is a prequel to A Good Man Goes to War. Very clever, right? And
oh, yes.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Clever.
Yeah. So essentially he knows, Dorium tells the headless monks that he knows what they're up to because he's heard rumors about what they're up to. And he says, all this to imprison one child? I know what you're up to. I hear everything in this place, wherever he is. And he says, I even hear rumors about whose child you've taken. And this was our first hint that there was a child involved. And we knew that from, the end, the little cliffhanger from the previous main episode, The Almost People, where Amy's baby collapses into that pile of white goo, and that was our cliffhanger.
Yeah, gross.
Yeah. It kind of looks, it's like a cross between like milk and just something we won't talk about, but needless to say, it was pretty gross.
You didn't go there. Oh.
I almost went there, but I didn't go there. I stopped myself. And then, see, I just left it up to the imagination. I didn't say a thing. So, leave it up to everybody's dirty imaginations. And Dorium goes on to say, are you mad? You know about the stories about the Doctor? You know what the things that man has done? God help us if you make him angry. Dun, dun, dun. That leads us to the episode. So just a little teaser to whet everybody's appetites for the real story. So I just thought I'd address that real quick.
They've been giving teases for a few episodes with, what's her face? Madame Kovarian.
Yeah.
Just like
yes,
peeking through that little hatch.
Yeah, she's doing it. Yeah, her little quick cameos, like when after she had captured Amy, and it's like talked about like you're ready to pop, aren't you? All creepy like that.
Yeah. Do we know exactly when it was that she took her?
The kind of hint was that during the Impossible Astronaut, so like the second episode of the season, probably shortly after Amy told the Doctor that she was pregnant. I'm guessing.
Mm.
That's what I'm thinking. The switch happened. And
okay.
That's my theory on it. Anyway, I don't think they never officially said when the switch happened, as far as I recall. Unless somebody else knows, please write in, tell me I'm wrong, and I'll be happy to relay the details here on the podcast.
I feel like we should go back and watch that episode and try to pin it down exactly when. Or,
I know. It is kind of.
He actually said in this episode, he said that it was before America, so maybe even before that.
Oh, you think it was? Okay. Maybe.
Well, that's what he said.
Oh, that's what he said. Well, then that's probably it. Then I mean, I'm good. Moffat wrote all those episodes, so I'm going to guess that if he says it's before the Doctor went to America, so probably sometime between season one or Matt's first season and then Matt's second season, I guess. Right?
Or you know, they had to have been on the TARDIS
Right.
during A Christmas Carol because like that was their honeymoon.
Right. So probably
So,
after that, after A Christmas Carol, and then before
The Impossible Astronaut.
Yeah, The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon. Yeah, that's probably it then. Okay. So,
Yeah.
thanks for setting me straight.
Off screen. That's cheating.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's like, wait, you didn't show us. That doesn't count, right?
Right. How are we supposed to pick up on it?
It's not fair. Moffat does not play by the rules. It never does.
Right.
Moffat shakes fist. All right. So if you're ready, let's talk about our main topics. And so topic number 1, let's talk about the Doctor, the 11th Doctor, River Song, Amy and Rory, the happy sort of family. At least 3/4 of it are family. The fourth is just kind of tag along boyfriend of River Song.
Ish.
And
yeah, at this point it was still kind of iffy what was going on with those two.
And the chauffeur for Amy and Rory, essentially, because he's always driving them around. Yes. So so River gets it on with the chauffeur, I guess. That's the family chauffeur. Ponder that one.
You are thinking some wonderful thoughts for this episode.
Yeah, apparently my brain is in a weird place, and I apologize for that. So, but it should make for a really interesting podcast, right?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, sure. You just go along with it. Yeah.
I'm going to dive right in with the Doctor on this because
yes, yeah, please
first off, I picked this episode because like this episode is just pure Flash. Like I love everything about it. Like bringing in all of these characters that we've seen before, all these characters that we were sort of kind of supposed to see before, but really we just met them. And he just, calling in all the favors. And man, he was just on point with lots of things like, Amy Pond, get your coat.
Yes, he's so authoritative. And,
he's like,
and confident.
Seconds.
Yeah.
Like he's calling his shot.
Yes, he is. He is calling his shot. He's very confident, almost to the point of being cocky.
Very confident.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of the traits I like in a Doctor is confidence. And it's kind of one of the reasons why I'm not the biggest fan of Capaldi, because I felt a lot of times Capaldi seemed unsure and bumbling. Like he wasn't always confident.
I think his later seasons, not the first season, but the later seasons, he gets to do the big Doctor speech more. Mm-hmm. And especially like in his big spotlight episode where he's kind of locked in that prison that Time Lord prison. And
that was not one of my favorite episodes.
But he is very authoritative in that one. And makes his stand. So he does get to do the Doctor speech. That's what I was trying to go with. But he does get his moments. But you're right. So at least especially about his first season. So you like the Doctor being authoritative here.
Yeah, being authoritative and
confident.
Like calling his shots.
Yes.
Just like he knows what's going to happen and he's going to win.
Right.
And I love all of that. And you know what? One of the things I actually love about this episode is that they don't actually kind of win. They kind of lose.
So do you think the Doctor's got too confident and overconfident in this episode?
A little bit, but I really don't think it was avoidable.
Well, I mean, I think that one of the issues that the Doctor faces is that Madame Kovarian, after punking him with Amy's baby, and that that when Amy Pond on the TARDIS wasn't Amy Pond, and just turned out to be a big pile of white goo.
He didn't think to check the baby.
He didn't think to check the baby, and then she did it again. And then she's like, I can't believe I got you again, man. It's like you're so
it's
pathetic.
A pleasure.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I owned you once, and then I owned you again, and you fell for it, like the idiot you are. And so, yeah, I think he does get a little too overconfident.
It's nice to the Doctor's competent and cocky and also fallible. Like I like that it's all in this episode. We see the whole spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, it's like River mentions that this is your one of your greatest moments, your highest high, but then also you will fall so far.
Right.
And
And
obviously,
it
we
wasn't
find
until
out
my
that
last time
yeah,
watching this episode, like River says that to Rory when he tries to pick her up for this mission, and she says she can't go, but she tells him that this will be the Doctor's highest moment, but
hmm
he will also fall. And then Madame Vastra says this is your highest moment, and there's a look from Rory like, oh no,
right, that
that's
prophecy is
exactly
coming
what
true.
River said.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it took, I must have watched this episode 4 times in preparation for this podcast, and I didn't see that until the last
right.
time.
So what I think is the Doctor's really lowest moment in this episode is the look that Amy gives him. Once, her baby Melody has been taken, she realizes it and realizes that the Doctor wasn't able to prevent that.
Mm-hmm.
And that the Doctor let her down. Her Raggedy Man let her down.
And she's so angry with him.
Right.
But then
she knows
Jenny?
she knows that she needs it. Yeah, Jenny does try to calm her down.
Jenny says it's not his fault, and she takes a second. She goes, "I know."
Like she knows in her head, but
yeah,
but the emotions that she's raw and she's angry, and yeah,
she's a mother separated from her child. That's what you're gonna get.
And I thought Karen Gillan did a really good job with that in this episode.
Yes.
I mean, she's always good. She's always on point, I think. But
and she is so Scottish.
Yes, she is.
I love that line.
Yes, you're so Scottish. Yeah.
Let them all die before
right.
us.
Yeah, that was
so Scottish.
Yeah, she tries to warn Rory because she's all protective of Rory. She's like, "Go ahead and let them die, but you come back alive or whatnot."
Speaking of Rory, and I have to say this has to be my favorite moment in all of modern Who.
Yeah.
When he shows up on the Cybermen station, and
rocking the Roman centurion garb.
Oh yeah. It was like, I have a message and a question, a message from the Doctor and a question from me. Yeah. Where is my wife? And then you're like,
it's a complete message. It's a complete badass move. He goes,
oh yeah,
and then in the background behind him.
Just
the cyber ships are exploding, and then he's all like, basically,
deadpan.
Yeah, deadpan.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, that was
like, yes.
Yeah, that was Stone.
It's gonna be the most badass moment in all of Doctor Who, and it was Rory, not the Doctor.
Yeah, that was Rory's drop the mic moment, really.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was pretty solid, and Arthur Darvill, credit to him, he pulled it off because. After, all those episodes of Rory being so wishy-washy and dorky and whatnot, and basically not really henpecked, but just overshadowed by Amy. Here he is, he's stepping up to the plate. And because
he's kind of like
yeah.
Amy's companion. Like, basically Amy is the Doctor compared to him.
Yes. Yeah, like Amy's the Doctor's companion, but Rory is Amy's companion.
Uh-huh. I mean, I think they even said that in one of the episodes.
Yeah, probably did.
And, the fact that the Doctor always calls him Mr. Pond. Like, that's not how it works. Yes, it is.
And the Doctor's not really trying to say that to be emasculating to Rory. He's just like, look, that's the way it is. Deal with it.
It's just... You're second fiddle to her. That's just she's a much bigger personality.
Right.
You're just gonna have to accept that.
Yeah, you're just have to. Yeah, you're like, you're cool, but you're like second string cool to Amy's first string cool, I guess.
Like arguing over what the baby's last name is gonna be.
Yeah.
Melody Pond, Melody Williams.
Yeah, but then Amy has this great line.
Geometry teacher.
Yeah, Amy has this great line. Yeah, like Melody Williams is a geometry teacher, but. Melody Pond is a superhero.
Yeah. Oh, and there was this wonderful sobering moment for Rory. Like, Strax basically holds up a mirror to Rory. Strax is dying.
Yes.
And Rory tells him he'll be back on his feet in no time. He's a great warrior. And Strax says, Rory, I'm a nurse. And here's Rory,
Mm-hmm.
dressed in Roman regalia, like the last centurion, supposedly
Yes.
a warrior, but really, he's just a nurse.
Yes. But presumably Rory remembers being a Roman soldier. Presumably Rory can fight.
Yes.
And so he's kind of both now. He is a soldier, which is probably why he wears
universe.
Exactly.
It's so confusing.
It is
Timey-wimey.
confusing. Yeah, exactly. Because there's that. Well, let's see. Rory was an Auton for a while, and then he made of plastic, and now he's not. And the Doctor goes through that whole spiel, and Rory being the soldier. It's just it seems weird, but technically, yeah, he is. If you're following the continuity, basically Rory was retconned as more than just a nurse because of his experience. He remembers it, presumably. So I kind of wonder if he remembers all of that 1,000 years that he was waiting by the Pandorica, waiting for it to open.
I think he would, yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of disturbing that he remembers that all that time.
Yeah, I mean, that would give you a little PTSD, you'd think.
You would think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's never really.
We haven't really talked about River.
No, no, we should talk about River because this is obviously a big episode for her. We get the big revelation of who she is, and but River, for the most part, interestingly, she keeps herself out of things until the very end.
I think it has a little to do with one of the Doctor's rules that he likes to break a lot.
Yes.
You're not supposed to cross your own timeline, and technically, she's there the whole time,
right?
As baby.
So essentially,
she shouldn't be there.
She shouldn't meet herself as a baby, right?
Yeah.
That whole Blinovitch limitation effect kind of thing that you shouldn't meet yourself.
Yeah. So I mean, although it's not like.
But once the baby's gone.
Her.
But once the baby's gone, then she can step into view, and
that's exactly when she shows up.
Right. Exactly.
That's what she tells Rory. She can't help. She can't do anything to help in this situation, and she doesn't tell him why. But I think that's why.
Yeah. And this was after when she talked to Rory. I kind of like that moment that these two have when she's coming back, from partying wherever, and comes back to Stormcage to check herself in. And it's kind of hilarious that Stormcage is essentially like this hotel for her, not a prison.
Yeah.
She just checks in whenever she wants.
Turn off the alarms. I'm breaking in, not out.
Right. And she's kind of half tipsy at this point. And then Rory shows up. And Rory goes, introduces himself to her. It's like, who, you remember me? And she's like, of course I remember you, Rory. But it's not until at the end of the episode we kind of understand why. Mm-hmm. And after you know the secret, you go back and you watch that scene, and you realize, well, she's talking with her dad, and she knows that he's her dad, but of course he doesn't at this point. And it's
she has to walk a wonderful line.
It is a very interesting dynamic, isn't it? I really find it fascinating, and I really liked it, that whole sequence, especially after you go back and you know everything.
And the suggestion that he try heels.
Yes. Right. Oh,
the Doctor's rules of engagement look ridiculous. If he tried heels.
Right. Exactly. But that was pretty good. But River, in the process of revealing her secret, she has to kind of convince the Doctor, and she's like. The Doctor brings out his crib, which I thought was a really interesting moment. That he brings out the crib, and they're asking the Doctor Amy and Rory are asking the Doctor all these questions about the crib, and he's dodging the questions. He's like, she's asking do you have children? And well, yes,
no.
He says no, but he did. We know he had his granddaughter, Susan.
And that she picks up on the possibility of that immediately and says, "Did you have children?"
Right, and he doesn't answer.
He avoids the.
Yeah, he doesn't answer, and he's like, and then he's like, "It's my cot." Like he immediately changes the subject back to the cot to avoid.
Actually,
talking about that.
There was this whole subtext happening with that because, Rory's got this slight jealousy where it comes to the Doctor, which is weird. Like, he's so immature all the time, but he still thinks that there might be something between the Doctor and Amy.
Right.
And, like, he asks permission to hug her, and then, like, Rory cuts the hug off because it's going on too long.
Yes.
And then,
it's like there's a time limit on this hug here.
Yes, and then like when they're talking about the baby, and Amy's like, "Tell me something," and he turns around and he says, "It's mine," and the look on Rory's face,
Right,
he's
right.
like, "The cot,
The cot.
cot's mine,
not the baby, not the baby." Yeah,
I slept there.
I'm sure that was intentional on Moffat's part, just to make Rory squirm that bit a little bit. But it was good. It was a good comedic moment, and that was good. I like that. But, we find out that the cot is the Doctor's from way back in the day. And somehow he's kept it.
It looks just about that old.
It does. And it's inscribed in Old Gallifreyan text, and presumably Old High Gallifreyan, and which is a nod way back to classic Doctor Who. And it takes a while to translate. Amy can't read it because it's in the Gallifreyan, but River can.
Mm-hmm. Does River read it?
Well, I don't know because she does because there's an inscription on the side, and that but that was
felt like that was just to throw Amy off for a little bit, not knowing what they were looking at.
Right.
But
I think Amy could, or excuse me, not Amy. I think River could read it because of remember she's coming backwards. So she had spent time with the Doctor by this point. And she knows things that, because the Doctor's coming the other direction because they're reversing timelines. And so she knows more with her experiences with the Doctor in the future. And so I think at some point after interacting with all those Doctors, she picked up how to read Gallifreyan. And she's also part Time Lord.
Well, that's just an assumption, though. We never find out if she can read Time Lord.
Right.
It never comes up.
But she does say, "I'm trying to tell you," and she goes, "Read the inscription on the side of the crib."
No, she just says the written word takes longer. You have to concentrate, and Amy assumes she's talking about what's on the crib.
Oh, okay. You're right.
Yeah,
Okay.
nobody actually reads the inscription on the crib in this episode. There's just assumptions that they are.
That's right, because she brings out the prayer cloth.
Prayer leaf.
Prayer leaf, thank you.
Which was in the crib. Amy was watching
that Lorna
them.
made for her, yes.
Yeah. Amy was watching them. They were both looking into the crib, but from her perspective, it looked like they were looking at the outside of the crib.
Gotcha. I got a little confused there. You're absolutely right.
It was a pointless red herring, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked pretty, and
right.
It's nice to know that's what Gallifreyan looks like, but
yes.
It was just there to throw us off for a second.
Right. Yeah, just to kind of, misdirect. Yes. Obviously worked on me, and but you bring up the prayer leaf. So at this point, River shows Amy the prayer leaf, and mentions to her, that Lorna's people didn't have a word for pond, so they basically translated Melody Pond as Song River, essentially. And River reversed that, and that's why she has the name River Song.
Well, it sounds better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Song River doesn't
quite work.
And I don't think the prayer leaf really tells you which is side A, which is side B.
Right. but yeah.
I find it a little odd that an entire planet only has a river, no other bodies of water. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I can buy that maybe they don't have the word pond because apparently they don't have the word doctor. Their experience with the Doctor is what gave them the word doctor, and to them it means mighty warrior. Right. So their vocabulary seems to be lacking.
Well, and it's been expanded, shall we say? Now they got the updated and expanded edition. with the Doctor, I think. All right. Anything else about the Doctor, River, Amy, and Rory that I missed that you want to talk about?
No, there's just a lot of good quotes in there. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll get to our favorite quotes. Yeah, just stay tuned because there's a lot of great lines in this episode.
It's one of the reasons I love it.
It's a Moffat episode. There's going to be great dialogue, guaranteed. All right, topic number 2. Let's talk about the Paternoster Gang, who technically isn't the Paternoster Gang yet, but this is essentially how they get together. It's like the how the Beatles got together, or something famous.
Although we don't see how Madame Vastra gets together with Jenny Flint.
No, we don't, and I'd love to know that story of how those two met.
I noticed that there's some comic stuff going on. Of course, there's Big Finish audio, which I never get a chance to listen to.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, there's some Paternoster Gang audios if you want to learn more. So, and thankfully, you get all the original actors back for that. So, yeah, if you're a fan of the Paternoster Gang, and who isn't, you should probably check those out if you're missing the characters.
Another question I have:
yes.
The little story we get about how the Doctor met Madame Vastra, it implies that she wasn't found in the 1800s because they talk about it just said tunnel diggers.
It said tunnel diggers, so presumably they had to be at least far enough to where it wasn't like millions of years in the past.
Yeah, I mean,
the regular
assumed that it was just like I thought they were digging a tunnel for a subway, but
right.
I guess they do have tunnels back in the day.
Well, they did, yeah. They had all kinds of tunnels.
Many.
As what, yeah. They hadn't quite had the main London Underground, but they did have tunnels for various things. So at some point, yeah, we find out that Vastra apparently was probably going around in these tunnels, snacking on helpless tunnel diggers.
Yes.
And the Doctor showed up and basically got her, I don't want to say civilized, but essentially assimilated her to London society, where she made a name for herself as a detective.
Which is just impressive considering what she looks like.
Right, exactly. Well, she wore the veil, but still, for one thing, this is 19th century London, and you have a woman actually.
A woman.
Yeah. Regardless of her species, that, it's a woman in that society able to kind of be well respected like that for a vocation, as opposed to just being some, lord or whatever's ornament, trophy wife, essentially. It's a credit to Vastra. Which is
impressive all by itself.
Yeah, exactly. So Vastra essentially becomes the inspiration for Sherlock Holmes, as we're told later on. When in The Snowman we find out that revelation. But so she kind of sets up shop as a Sherlock Holmes type investigator. And Jenny's working with her as her kind of assistant, and then as of this episode, they bring in Skaggs, who, after bringing him back from the dead, which I'll talk about here at the after, because there was well, I guess I could talk about it now. There was a sequel where we find, or like a few years later, they actually did a little mini episode back in. So this episode was in 2011. 2 years later, they did a mini episode called, what is it called here? The Battle of Demons Run 2 days later.
Yeah.
And if you remember that one... 2
days, 2 years, whatever.
So we pick up 2 days after the Battle of Demons Run that was shown in A Good Man That Goes to War. Basically, we find out how Skaggs is brought back from the dead. To make sense, because when we saw him next, in the 19th century, working as their butler, that, okay, how did you, aren't you dead? How did you become alive? And this mini episode kind of gives us this story.
It's part of what made it even more confusing regarding this group, because you felt like you had seen them before because of the way they were presented, but you hadn't actually. And then here we are in the past, and the Doctor's with them, and Strax is there.
Right.
But Strax was dead, so maybe this is when we actually see them before the Demons Run, except, wait a minute, no.
Yes.
The Doctor is very much post-Demons Run here. I'm lost!
So,
They really confused me.
So the way I wrote this down was essentially, we get the continuity is, obviously, A Good Man Goes to War. That's when they all get together for the first time. Then we have the Battle of Demons Run 2 days later. Then we have the Snowmen. And then, which is, Good Man Goes to War is, the Doctor picks up Madame Vastra and Jenny in 1888. And then the Snowmen is set like 4 years later in 1892. And then the Crimson...
So the question is,
yes.
Have they been together for 4 years at this point?
Presumably. There's no reason why they wouldn't be, unless they, were brought back by the TARDIS 4 years after the fact. But I would think
would be bad for her reputation.
Exactly.
Which would have to be so hard to maintain.
Yeah, exactly. It's like have a 4-year absence. See, that's why I don't think so. I think they were there, all those 4 years. So the question is, what happened during those 4 years? I guess. A year later, the Crimson Horror episode takes place in 1893, and then that leads into The Name of the Doctor, and then finally Deep Breath, which was Capaldi's first story, and that's the last time we see them on Doctor Who, barring any Big Finish adventures.
Right.
So to fill in all those gaps.
They are a really good group, and considering this is their first episode, they really gelled together.
They do.
They had their characters down, and Strax is just the perfect comic relief. Just that weird mentality that he has.
This whole soldier thing that like, I'm going to blow them up with grenades and stuff like that. Yeah.
Captain Harcourt, I hope someday to meet you in the glory of battle, where we shall crush the life from your worthless human form. Try and get some rest.
Yes.
Just
crazy. One minute he's a nurse, and then just a split second he's back into soldier mode. So it's pretty funny, and that's what makes a great contrast.
He takes his duties seriously. He had himself gene spliced to produce lacted fluid.
That's commitment.
Yes,
that is commitment. But we find out that basically the reason he was forced to become a nurse was to restore the honor of his clone batch. Yes. And whatever that means. So basically being a nurse was a punishment.
Yes,
for whatever reason.
For the weak and helpless.
Yeah, we never got that story.
The weak and sick.
Yeah, we don't know what his clone batch did to warrant that dishonor. But that happened.
Is it his clone batch that earned the dishonor, or him personally?
We don't know. I don't think.
Yeah.
It's very vague. Maybe it's one of those, he says it's his clone batch, but really it's his fault. And he's not owning up to that.
Well, he brought dishonor to his clone batch. He must earn honor back for his clone batch.
Maybe that's it.
They're all together in this.
Yeah. Unless there's like a bunch of lactating Sontarans around the universe. Yeah. I know.
Why'd you have to put it that way? You could have said nurses.
True. All right. See, I have brought dishonor to this podcast, so now I must atone. Now I must.
No.
I must redeem the honor of the podcast. All right.
Since we're in these like side characters topic, you brought up a few when you were going through like cast trivia.
Yes.
But I also know. So we got the Spitfires.
Danny Boy. Yep.
From Victory of the Daleks, which took place in World War II, featured Winston Churchill. Mm-hmm. Those ships were augmented with Dalek technology. Is that what it was?
Yes. Yeah, that they're normal Spitfires, but apparently the Doctor souped them up so they could fly in space. I don't think they're quite space-worthy, but it's Doctor Who. You roll with it.
It's Doctor Who.
You roll with it, yeah.
They do things in between episodes and don't tell us.
And the voice of Danny Boy... is
this is the writer, right?
Well, that's
or director.
No, that's Mark Gatiss, the actor, who's written and acted in Doctor Who.
That's right. Yes, and I believe Victory of the Daleks was one he wrote.
Yes, Victory in the Daleks was one he wrote. So yeah, so he voiced that character in that episode, and because it's just a vocal cameo, and he did the same thing here. You know, the whole Danny Boy, come in. This is the Doctor, come in. This is Danny Boy, and so it's really easy to do.
We also see some Jadoon for a second,
right?
And, like, he really calls in all his markers.
And there's some Silurians, not just Madame Vastra. He brings in some Silurian soldiers.
There's like a whole squad of Silurians.
Yeah, and that was cool to see. I always like to see those. And we get Henry Avery and his son from the Curse of the Black Spot, right? So they returned very briefly in a cameo.
It's an excellent pirate episode. Everything's better pirates.
Exactly. So it's Moffat essentially getting to play with all his favorite toys in one shot,
and some actors getting to reprise some roles on Doctor Who. Like, look, I was in 2 episodes.
Exactly. They're not just one-offs; they're 2-offs. And but yeah, I kind of get the vibe here for that. Moffat wasn't really planning on the Paternoster Gang, but then once he saw them interacting in this episode, he probably got an idea. It's like, hey, these 3 characters could like make their own spin-off series, so I got to bring them back.
This happens a lot in TV. You know, they create characters for something and they think, this is what I'm going to do with these characters. And then you get the actors involved and suddenly it just like becomes so much more than you ever thought. I think that happened with Spike on Buffy. He was supposed to die halfway through that one season, but he was such a fan favorite character. Everybody loved him.
And he interacted so well with the rest of the cast. And
and he made it on the show longer than the show made it. He went on to the spinoff after it was over.
Exactly. So that's cool. So, I got to think that, this was just another happy little accident in Doctor Who that these characters became such fan favorites from that point on, I think. And certainly favorites of mine. I really enjoy these characters. I mean, I love the dynamic. Vastra's like the Sherlock Holmes, and Jenny's her plucky assistant. And Strax is just there for comic relief, and it's a great dynamic playing off each other. He
has some fun lines.
He does. I love my favorite of his is in The Snowman, where it's like, "Help! I've been run over by a cab." When he wakes up after the memory worm.
Yes.
I love that moment. So Dan Starkey is just hilarious. He's got great comedic timing. All right, let's move on. Topic number 3, unless there's anything else you want to talk about.
No, I'm good.
All right, topic number 3, Madame Kovarian and the Headless Monks. So essentially, Madame Kovarian, our big bad of the episode, owns the Doctor in this episode. She kind of, the bad guy wins in this episode, and which is very rare on Doctor Who. And we get the introduction of these Headless Monks after the prequel teaser. And so what did you think of those characters? And maybe we could throw in the church. While we're at it,
the clerics?
The clerics, yeah.
Did we see these, maybe not the exact same characters, but did we see these clerics in the previous, Weeping Angels episode?
Yes,
Is
exactly.
This the same?
It's the same group,
okay.
Yes. Yeah, it's the same church. It's kind of like we don't see the same church characters, so it's kind of hard to make that connection, but they do have the same uniforms and the same logos and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so, it's the same overall organization, I guess.
I think one of the things I like about this episode, even though quite a bit of it is manufactured, they reuse stuff. Like a lot of Doctor Who, they just new every episode. Everything is new, and but there's so much you already put into this universe.
Right.
You have to come across it again sometime. So it's nice to see the familiarity of characters or even concepts that you've already been introduced to.
Right.
So I loved seeing the clerics.
I think that as a showrunner, showrunners probably have to kind of play that line that, well, there is all this history, but we can't keep going back to it, otherwise it's going to come off like fan service.
Yeah, but then I think back to Harry Potter, and Polyjuice Potion is introduced in the second book, but it comes back a few more times, and I love that because it's not overused, but it's why would we do this same effect in a different way?
Yes. When
we've already established this in this universe, this is a perfect.
It's a tool. You might as well use it. Yeah.
And if you didn't use that, if you tried to do something that would have been made easier and didn't use that tool, the fans would also say, hey, why didn't you just do this?
Right.
So
it's a catch-22. You can't win one way or the other, really.
Yeah. I much prefer universe building, and these things exist in this universe, so they would be there.
Right. You introduce these concepts. You introduce these concepts, but you might as well use it. Yeah. The headless monks. Yes. Sorry to interrupt.
The headless monks, though, I don't get it. I mean,
yeah,
they're nice, they're mysterious and creepy. That's cool, but like, I know Doctor Who does not like to get into the mechanics of anything.
Right.
That's kind of its shtick, but I need to understand how these things work, because like they have to have some sort of technology that allows them to continue living without a head.
Yeah, what's the deal? How's that work?
Fast, because Dorian, he walks over to them thinking they're going to forgive him, and they just cut off his head, and then he's walking around. I'm like, damn, that was fast. What you guys do?
So I don't know. It's like, but they chop his head off, and then they stick something on his body, like a little control unit or something, maybe.
Well,
and they kind of like steer him around like a puppet. I don't know how that works. It is very odd. And
I don't see the point either. I mean, they say that they can't be scared or lied to or something like that. I'm like, but they have to have reasoning skills, right? So
right, you would think.
Why wouldn't you just cut out that part of the brain instead of losing the whole head? There's important things in the head, like eyes, and you eat that way. Assume the body would still require fuel.
Right. It's like if you want bodies, why don't you just like go to the local morgue and take those?
Yeah.
You know what I'm thinking?
There's a smell.
Well, but
you know what? There's a smell, but they don't have noses, so.
That's true. It's like, how does it smell? Terrible. No. My dog has no nose. Yes. That old joke.
Nobody would work with them if they smelled that bad.
Exactly. It's like, they don't notice it. It's no big deal. We're cool.
I think about like the origin of the headless monks. Like, who decided this was a good idea?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, and that the fact that, well, every so often we kind of need to contribute somebody, sacrifice somebody to them to keep them around. It's like, what do they really bring to the table that it's worth the price of admission here? I don't get that.
I don't know.
But,
I mean,
okay. They
seem to be on the winning side.
Yeah.
The clerics seem to be like screwed over in the end of this, but the headless monks, they were still with Madame Kovarian, and I don't know what they were doing with her, but they knew what was going on.
The only thing I think of is just like she needed soldiers, and they're like, okay, these guys are available. They're like mercenaries. We'll just hire them. And I don't really care about their ideology. I just want them to kill the Doctor for me or something. I don't know.
I think he just wanted, Moffat just wanted to make some, creepy villain.
Yeah, and he doesn't.
It's always nice to have someone in a hood that you can't really see who they are, like the Ring Wraiths or Dementors.
Yes, yeah.
It's like wanted some hooded villain.
I just want something that looks cool, and I'm not going to really dig too deep into this. I'm just gonna, it's all about the look and the image that I want to present, and because I don't think Moffat's the big into the except for in the case for River, his one of his favorite characters, but normally the two of the clerics that were talking with Lorna at the beginning of the episode, he just refers to them as the thin one and the fat one, and which makes no sense. And he's like, we're the thin, fat, gay,
Oh wait, this is one of my quotes.
Okay, I won't steal it. But my point is that it's like he didn't even bother giving them names, and he's like, I don't have to. And
he doesn't have
and get
to.
away with it. Let's
be honest. These guys are red shirts. You don't have to give them names.
My point though is they actually refer to themselves as the thin one and the fat one. They don't refer to themselves by name, which is
they're owning
weird.
it. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Owning it. I was just watching Pitch Perfect.
As a writer, it just seems a little lazy to me. But maybe that's me. Maybe I'm just weird.
He put all of his effort into River's backstory. That was his big O.
Yeah, he's like, I got a deadline. Screw it. They're the thin one and the fat one. Moving on.
Well, actually, I think that whole conversation took a lot more effort than I'm Pat and this is Bob.
Yeah. I know.
I feel like there was effort there. There was comedic effort.
Right. It was worth the gag, is what you're saying.
Yes,
Got
I
it.
think it was.
Okay, all right. So Madame Kovarian, we should talk about her really quick. Okay, so throughout this series, her deal is that she wants to get a hold of Amy and Rory's baby and turn the baby into an assassin to kill the doctor.
It's a wonderful plan. I should.
Yeah, it's like of all the assassins I could get, I'm gonna get, just, is it just that because it's Amy Rory's baby that she thought it would be like, oh, too perfect, like, oh,
Well,
this is.
I think the added benefit to this, because like whenever anybody comes after him, he doesn't hold back. Well, I mean, he holds back. He gives them a chance, and then when they don't take the chance, then he doesn't hold back.
Right.
But this is Amy and Rory's baby. There's that personal connection, which makes her a little more perfect.
Right.
He will hold back.
Yeah, you're right, because there is that connection. You're right, and he won't be as determined, like when it happens. Like, I won't just immediately write them off and be the no second chances kind of doctor with that assassin, because it is Amy Rory's baby. I get it. I think that's a good point.
Yeah. Also, she is the second coolest eye patch person that I know of. She rocked that eye patch the best. And
who's
so
the first?
Margot from The Magicians. She came along and she really rocked an eye patch.
Yes, she does. I'm a huge Margot fan.
Mm.
Margot is my spirit animal.
Excellent. I mean, I love Margot, but she's not quite Elliot for me. Wow, are we off topic?
Yes, we are.
Rocking the eye patch.
That's a whole
different. Watch The Magicians, guy.
Yeah, watch The Magicians. It's a great show, and that's probably a whole different podcast. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right. See, I was thinking you were going to go like Nick Fury or something, but you went a completely unexpected but yet very cool direction, I might add.
Well, Nick Fury, he doesn't really rock the eye patch as just like pulls it off.
Right.
He's
Margot makes it a fashion statement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even when she's not Margot, when she lost her mind, memory, and she was Janet, like she still rocked the eye patch.
Yes, the digressions are coming fast and furious. I know, So her whole plan is just to sick Amy and Rory's baby on the doctor, and at this point here, it's all going according to plan, because as we find out, this kind of takes us back to the Impossible Astronaut, back to the beginning of the series, because of finding that child inside the astronaut suit. And then, of course, the child gets out. They let the child out of the astronaut suit, and then the child goes off and regenerates. It's not until later that we find out that child was River.
Right.
When she regenerated into Melanie. Or Mel's. Mel's. Yeah. In Let's Kill Hitler. Yes. Which,
and of course, it was the perfect disguise. You wouldn't for 1 second think that they were related.
Right, exactly. But yeah, so it's kind of a very convoluted plan, but it's sort of working at this point.
Hey, it technically does work.
Well, that's true.
He gets killed.
He does get killed, but technically it's not him. It's a Tesselecta, but as we find out. Mm-hmm. And that's a little timey-wimey. That's a whole different episode we're going to talk about.
Oh my God, let's not get into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a rabbit. That's a whole different rabbit hole. Yeah.
Yeah. Total side note, unrelated. In the beginning, they have this sign in the background. Mm-hmm. It shows a sonic screwdriver, and it says, "Remember, it's not Sonic. It's not a screwdriver." I'm like, really?
Important safety tip.
It is Sonic.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It kind of makes noise. It's Sonic, but hey.
I don't think it's a screwdriver. You might be able to use it for that, but I don't think he ever really does.
Well, he did actually when it was introduced. He used it as a screwdriver. Patrick Troughton in the second Doctor's era when it was introduced, basically he's pointing it at it when it's introduced, the Sonic, and it unscrews this screw by itself, and then he screws it back in. Was that the first and
only time?
That was the first and only time it involved an actual screw. Yes.
We need to see it again. Yeah. I need a throwback.
It's like, so really, it does stuff with screws. Trust me on this. Yeah. But Francis,
and I love how they're sitting there with like a badge and psychic paper and trying to like learn how to see through it.
Yes.
Like, where do you get psychic paper? I want some psychic paper.
Right, exactly. It's like you could buy this down at like the drugstore. You can go to like Walgreens or CVS or something and pick that up.
Or you can get it from Dorium. He'll just ask a ridiculous price for it.
This is true.
Assuming his head is still attached.
It's like, is this pre losing his head or post losing his head? When he's just a head in the box, maybe it's not as like he's not as pricey at that point.
Oh, I forgot that he ends up as a head in a box.
He's a head in a box.
Still
yes.
Himself.
Right.
I forgot about that. So there is a little more on the mechanics of a headless monk. So you're still yourself as a head, but your body belongs to the monks.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm not sure how just being a head keeps him alive. I'm not sure how that works either. But somehow
ask Futurama.
And yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yes. It's like, shouldn't you have like vocal cords and lungs? And nope, don't need them.
Again,
just stick them in the jar.
Going on.
Exactly. All right. But Frances Barber is really good as Madame Kovarian in this. Very menacing. I know a lot of us thought back, like older fans thought that, well, hey, she might turn out to be the Ronnie from the original series, but didn't turn out that way. Completely original character, but still pretty effective. Good little like villain, even though we don't really learn that much about her during the course of her storyline. No, we really don't. And then,
why they feel like the Doctor is such a threat.
Yeah, exactly. It's just more like, hey, the silence. We need the Doctor's a threat. We need to do something about him, but we don't understand why Kovarian wants to make this so personal. Apart from just like, hey, it would be a perfect plan. Wouldn't this be awesome if like the Doctor's assassin was Amy and Rory's kid, and that's it?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like they already tried like the Doctor's a threat, and they stuck him in a box, and that didn't work. So are we still on this? The Doctor's a threat, and he needs to be taken care of.
It's like, what's our plan B? Okay, this is our plan B.
And I'm still not sure why they feel like he's such a threat. Like, he doesn't attack anybody who doesn't attack first.
Exactly. Maybe they just figure, well, he would be somebody, we've got our plans to take over the universe or what have you. And we know the Doctor's going to like get up on our grill about it at some point. So let's take him off the board so we can do whatever. Maybe. That's the only thing I could think of. Is that as a motivation?
Rock the power suit,
Exactly. Yeah,
that's part of her motivation.
She had rocked the shoulder pads. She had some shoulder pads going there.
Yeah.
And the eye patch looks very intimidating.
Very severe. Yeah, the metal eye patch. I mean, or at least it looks metal.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty good. So, and we kind of get a little bit more with the eye patches, and of course the Wedding of River song later on, when it gets even more confusing. But that's a whole.
Welcome to Moffat.
Exactly. Welcome to the world of Stephen Moffat, everybody. All right. Anything else about this episode before we move on to favorite lines?
No.
All right.
I'm all about the lines.
All right. Go ahead. Give me your favorite lines.
Well, Amy has this wonderful like monologue in the beginning. It's a little broken up, but I can like put it together.
Okay.
And this is like one of the aha moments I had when I was watching this the first time. So I wish I could tell you that you'll be loved, that you'll be safe and cared for and protected, but this isn't a time for lies. What you are going to be, Melody, is very, very brave, but not as brave as they'll have to be, because there's someone coming. I don't know where he is or what he's doing, but trust me, he's on his way. There's a man who's never going to let us down, and even an army can stop him, can get in his way. He's the last of his kind. He looks young, but he's lived for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's right at this moment that the light bulb turned on for me. I'm like, she's talking about Rory.
Mm-hmm. Not you like you kind of think that, well, she's talking about the Doctor. Nope.
No. It's funny, the parallels that come up here. It's just, and wherever they take you, Melody, however scared you are, I promise you, you will never be alone, because this man is your father. He has a name, but the people of our world know him better as the last Centurion. And I was like, yes. Like, I love that moment, not only because it was supposed to be a fake out, and I guessed it before they revealed it,
right?
But it was like really solidified that relationship for me. Like, she could be all enamored of the Doctor and like the Doctor's going to save us, but no, she's telling her daughter how her father is going to come and save them.
Right. Well,
and
and
I loved it.
There was that, that since you brought it up, there was that confusion in Series 5, their first season, where Amy was like, we thought Amy was just in love with the Doctor more than she cared about her own fiance, Rory. And then they kind of sorted that out, but there was still like that.
I think it was just cold feet.
You think?
I mean, she was
ready to have sex with him on her bed.
Yeah.
In her bedroom. So I think it's a little bit more than that.
You look at the type of person Amy is, and she's very much a go do things, see things kind of person, whereas Rory is like the small town guy who's happy being in the small town.
Right. And
she's decided to marry him, and she's wondering, is this really what I want to do with my life? Is this the guy for me? And right at that moment, the Doctor shows up.
Right.
Right when she's having serious cold feet. And
here's here's this amazing guy that I remember from my childhood. He's back in my life.
Yeah. I mean, it was a high emotional moment that he just came in at the wrong time, and that really can cause confusion for someone in that position. And
I thought Series 6 did a great job of turning that around and showing, Amy actually loves Rory.
Yes.
And that speech is a perfect example of that. It's like she's talking proudly about her husband, about what he's doing for their baby and whatnot. And, that he's coming to rescue us, not the Doctor. And it's a great moment.
And that's why that's like my number one quote for the episode, even though like my number one quote for this series is like, would you like me to repeat the question?
Right.
Which is also cool. Very, very good. It's like big mic drop. Oh,
yep. Yep. Owned it.
All right, your turn.
All right, my turn. Early on, when before the Doctor picks up Madame Vastra and Jenny, where Madame Vastra returns from a night's activities and tells Jenny, send a telegram to Inspector Abeline of the Yard. Jack the Ripper has claimed his last victim. And Jenny asks, how did you find him? And Madame Vastra replies, stringy, but tasty all the same. I shan't be needing dinner.
Very nice. I love the turn of phrase, like the clever puns.
Yes.
Like how did you find him? Stringy.
Ba-dum-bum. Yeah, exactly.
It's much better than with a map.
So funny.
All right,
but I really like that.
So
what's your next line?
The quote we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
We're the thin, fat, gay, married Anglican Marines. Why would we need names as well?
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I like the line that before Strax gets picked up that we talked about earlier, where Arthur says, will I be okay? And Strax tells him, of course you will, my boy. You'll be up and around in no time, and perhaps one day you and I shall meet on the field of battle, and I will destroy you for the glory of the Centauran Empire.
Yes.
Pure Strax.
Thank you, Nurse.
Yes, thanks, Nurse. So good. Dan Starkey is hilarious. Go ahead.
Time for a serious line.
Okay.
So this is near the end of the episode. The confrontation between the eye patch and the Doctor.
Yes.
The anger of a good man is not a problem. Good men have too many rules. Good men don't need rules. Today is not the day to find out why I have so many.
That's a good one.
Ooh,
That's a good one.
Because, and that's true. If you were a good man, you don't need any rules because you're good and you know how to be good. It's people who aren't good who need the rules to learn how to be good.
And you notice that's something that's kind of a thing that Moffat carries with him, a theme, into Capaldi's run, because his first series was like, well, am I a good man? And so he kind of questions that and has to kind of reassure himself over the course of that series that, yes, he is a good man. That's kind of a 12th Doctor character arc a little bit.
I feel like he works for being a good man.
Yes.
He's not naturally a good man, but he wants...
Yeah, he strives. It's his, he tries to be. And we'll see. With mixed results, obviously, sometimes. I like the exchange where Madame Vastra has to explain to the Doctor how babies can work on the TARDIS. And so the Doctor goes, well, how would I know? That's all human and private stuff. It just sort of goes on. They don't put up a balloon or anything. And Vastra goes, well, could the child have begun on the TARDIS, in flight in the vortex? And the Doctor goes, no, impossible. It's all running about, sexy fish vampires, and blowing stuff up. And Rory wasn't even there at the beginning. Then he was dead. Then he didn't even exist. Then he was plastic. Then I had to reboot the whole universe. Long story. So technically, the first time they were on the TARDIS together in this version of reality was on their... And Vastra goes, on their what? And the Doctor replies, on their wedding night.
Very good work with the
thank you.
The stopping,
the pausing. Yeah, thank you. So it's like light bulb. On the what? It's like he starts it and he's like, oh, light bulb.
Also, a very excellent summary of a whole season.
Right, pretty much. Right. That was it's like this is the Doctor's recap of Series 5 right there, all in one shot. Thought that was pretty good.
So here's another one.
Right, okay.
The Doctor at his flashiest.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Guess who? Please point a gun at me if it helps you relax. You're only human.
That was one of my quotes. I like that one. That's a good one.
Yes.
I like the one after Skaggs gets wounded and is dying. He goes, it's strange. I have often dreamed of dying in combat. I am not enjoying it as much as I'd hoped. So I thought that was a rather poignant quote from Skaggs.
Yes.
All right, any more?
All right, my last one.
All right.
Last one for me.
Okay.
So what have we learned? That anger is always the shortest distance to a mistake.
Nice.
I love that. That was the Doctor and Madame Vastra.
Right.
And she apparently was quoting him back at him.
Yes. Which he hates.
Yeah, she's like, because she's the first one to question how easy this all was, and there must be more going on here.
Right. That's good. All right, I have one last one for myself. Okay, so this is the Doctor and River toward the end of the episode. The Doctor goes, you think I wanted this? I didn't do this. This wasn't me. And River replies, this was exactly you. All this, all of it. You make them so afraid. When you began all those years ago sailing off to see the universe, did you ever think you'd become this? The man who could turn an army around at the mention of his name? Doctor? The word for healer and wise man throughout the universe? We get that word from you, you know. But if you carry on the way that you are, what might that word come to mean? To the people of the Gamma Forest, the word doctor means mighty warrior. How far you've come. And now they've taken a child, the child of your best friends, and they're going to turn her into a weapon just to bring you down. And all this, my love, in fear of you. That's powerful. That's good writing right there.
But he's just doing his job, He's trying to keep people safe.
Yeah, he's all Han Solo. It's not my fault. They told me they fixed it. They told me they fixed it. Yeah, exactly.
All right.
But I thought that was good.
Quoted the whole episode.
Pretty much. But I think it was worth it. Such great lines. What's your rating for this one?
I know I had some bad things to say about the Headless Monks, but I chalk them up to a throwback to classic Who cheesy. Yep. And so giving them a pass on that, I give them 10 out of 10 prayer leaves. Very nice. Very nice. You really like this episode. This is one of your favorites. Or is it your actual favorite episode? I can't really say. There's, I mean,
Top 10 at
Blink
least,
is
probably.
a really good one.
Probably,
Yeah, definitely top 10.
definitely top 10. Okay, that's fair. I really
It's
like
all Flash, and I love Flash.
I really like this one. I give it 9 out of 10 Gallifreyan baby cribs,
Ooh,
or cots, as they're referred to in this episode.
tots.
Yes, that's the UK version. Cots. That's why they say cot death instead of crib death.
Ah,
So now you know.
I would have gone with Cradle because it rocks, but
Right. Very point. That's actually a good quote right there. Cradles rock. Cradles rock. You get it?
yeah. Oh my God.
You just got it.
Moving on.
Moving on. Yes, I know. It was a bad
Do
joke.
we have time for a reverse?
I don't know. I don't know if we do. I'll try to. I won't go
People
into.
might have to listen to this on like a second drive.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that to everybody. So I'll just mention this really quickly. I'll just sum it up. So really quick, reverse the polarity segment this time. We're going to go back just really quickly. 1969, The War Games, which was the 7th serial, season 6. It's 1969, written by Terrence Dicks and Malcolm Hulk. And this is actually the episode that was airing when I was born back in the day. So this is technically my Doctor Who episode.
Ooh.
Yeah, shows you how old I am. And the reason, just the connection I have to A Good Man Goes to War is essentially that the Doctor, through the course of this episode, the second Doctor, Jamie and Zoe, joined forces with a group of resistance fighters from various time periods. That's the connection to A Good Man Goes to War, who end up breaking their conditioning, and they infiltrate this control base, foil the bad guy's plan, this bad guy, the war chief, and they, kind of save the day until the Doctor, eventually at the end of the story, to get everybody back to their times, has to kind of like call the Time Lords in. And this is when he was running from them at this point. And so this is when he gets busted by the Time Lords and is forced as punishment to regenerate, and begins his exile on Earth as John Pertwee, the third Doctor. So very cool story, very epic final story for the second Doctor. And
calling in the markers.
Yep, exactly. So if you're in the mood for something a little similar, it's not quite the comedic flair of A Good Man Goes to War, but it's a very cool story and some common themes, I think, of war.
Excellent.
So I'd recommend that one. So check that out. So that's a quick one. We do have some feedback I want to run through really quickly. We get Holly Mack. Holly from Wisconsin writes in about A Good Man Goes to War. She goes, "Hey, Charles and Christine. A Good Man Goes to War is probably..." Yeah, so she even gave Christine a shout out. A Good Man Goes to War is probably one of my favorite Series 6 episodes. The scene with Amy talking to baby Melody at first, you think she's telling her about the Doctor, but actually she's talking about Melody's father, Rory. And Christine gives that the big thumbs up. River being River knows what's coming. And the Paternoster Gang, how I miss them. And we know now the fate of Jack the Ripper. Thank you, Vastra.
Yes, thank you.
She was just feeling a little peckish, out for a little midnight snack, I guess. Instead of raiding the fridge, she raids the alley where Jack the Ripper hangs out. Go figure. Strax as a nurse had me chuckling. The Doctor being able to speak baby was so cute. Yeah, we didn't talk about the Doctor speaking baby, did we?
Oh, yeah, I totally forgot about that.
Very cute.
Not big milk thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess it's kind of the first conversation that the Doctor has with River chronologically from her standpoint, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, think about it. He can thank the TARDIS for translating, I'm sure. So many ties and connections to other series of New Who, and the final reveal that River is actually Melody, all that much more powerful. So many great scenes and lines of dialogue in the episode. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. So thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Holly.
Always great.
Clearly, we were on the same page here.
Yes, we were. Always great to hear from you, and also great to hear from Paul Beck from Australia. So hi, Paul, who writes in about Good Man Goes to War. Hi, Charles and Christine.
Yay.
So Christine also getting some love there. The thing I like most about the episode is that Moffat finally ties up a lot of plot threads that have been hinted at for a while. Yeah, but he also sets up a bunch of plot lines, because that's what Moffat does. He wraps up two plot lines, gives you 5 new ones on top of it. The big
Which may not all be wrapped up.
Which may not all be wrapped up. Yeah, exactly. You've noticed that as well. The big reveal, obviously, is that River is Amy and Rory's child, which I still think is a great reveal. Quite the shock. Didn't really see it coming, but it made sense if you can get your head around the timey-wimey aspect. You have to give it to Moffat. He plays a long game in storytelling. Yes, so long that sometimes even he forgets what storylines he wants to wrap up.
Needs to keep a Bible.
He does. He needs a checklist at least or something, a little to-do list. Also, we can meet the Paternoster Gang, who I still adore. Give them a spin-off series, please! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. The Battle of Demons Run is well executed as the Doctor attempts to rescue Amy from the clutches of Madame Kovarian, such an evil character who deserves the Doctor's wrath. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Best wishes always, Paul. P.S. Okay, once again, I am in the dark where we are going next. Looking forward to finding out. Well, this is before I posted on our Facebook page and our Twitter of what's coming up next on Next Stop Everywhere, our next few episodes. And we'll talk about that here at the end of the episode, so just hang loose. And,
it's funny. This is the second time somebody has suggested a spin-off.
Yes.
While I'm on the show. Last time it was Dr. Malcolm.
Yes, that was the one I suggested. Is that
yes.
And Osgood. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That Malcolm and Osgood should have their own spin-off series, and you agree with me.
Yeah, I do agree, and I think the Paternoster Gang should have a spin-off series as well. In fact, I'm surprised they haven't.
Right.
I mean, they have shown up quite a bit, which is nice.
It's right there, but maybe after doing Sherlock, maybe Moffat wants to stay away from the 19th century for a while. I don't know.
Who says it has to be Moffat?
That's a good point. Maybe he's just doesn't want to let him go. But
besides, his Sherlock is not the 19th century.
This is true. So I'll write it. I'll be happy to write it. Just let me.
All right,
give me a production budget, and because I don't want to do this fanfic, I want to do it for real. If you want,
start with the script. We'll go from there.
All right. Yes. There we go. All right. So if you want to be like Holly and Paul, and please do. Please write into us at nextstopeverywheresmg@gmail.com. That's nextstopeverywheresmg for Southgate Media Group at gmail.com. Or you can reach us on the Twitter at nextstopsmg. Or on Facebook at Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Please like and follow us there because, hey, that helps the algorithms make us more noticeable and gets us out there a little bit. So, and please tell your friends if they don't already do so, follow us because that would be great. And you can also reach us on the Instagram at Next Stop Everywhere podcast on the Insta. Please check that out as well. I'll post the Doctor Who related stuff as I come across it, like when I posted about the Tom Baker screening of Logopolis not too long ago. So other than that, Christine, where can they find you on the interwebs and other podcasts?
Well, you can, yes, another podcast. We are on Small Council Matters, Game of Thrones podcast. We have released our pregame show.
Nice.
You can get that now.
I need to listen to that.
Yes, I have this wonderful bit. I think everybody will get a chuckle out of it. It involves calling a press conference, and I'll just leave it at that.
That's cool.
But yeah.
So are you excited? We only have 1 week to Game of Thrones season 8.
Yes, I have predictions and fears and all sorts of things that listen to the podcast.
That's a good tease. Yeah, please do.
Yes. You can find me on Twitter, although I'm not always there, at C_Peruski. Mm-hmm. And you can find me on Facebook. It's where I post the podcast that I'm in and also some of my graphic art stuff. It's just Christine Peruski on Facebook. And you can also, if you're interested in that graphic art stuff, I'm also on Behance, Christine Peruski. And not a lot going on there, but I'm working on it.
Very cool. I didn't know you did art. That's awesome.
Well, I'm working on it.
That's all right. I respect that. I come up from a comic book background, so like I'm all about artwork and whatnot as well as writing. So that's cool. All kinds of fantasy. Is it more fantasy art or is it just more?
It's more like stuff that you would see, like maybe for commercial stuff,
Oh, okay.
advertising.
That's okay. That's cool.
Just to get a start, I would love to work on like movies and stuff. More of motion design
Okay.
is
Do you
my
want to
thing.
do you want to get into storyboarding?
Oh,
No?
that would be great. Although it's not my strength. Drawing is not my strength.
Okay. Well, that's
Although
cool.
I have some drawings on there too, if you want to
Or
check that out.
or you're more into the marketing aspect of it.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to get me a job right
Yes,
now.
that actually pays. Yes. Money is
Yes.
good. Money is fun. See, that's why I got the business degree instead of the English degree for writing, because I like to eat. I was very fond
Yeah.
of that.
I'm very big on eating. I
Yeah.
think most of our listeners would agree with us.
Yes. So, yeah, unfortunately, that's the creative sacrifice that you sometimes have to make.
Mhm.
It's like, I want to do this fun thing, but this other thing pays well and,
Yeah.
puts food on my table and gas in my car. So, go figure. So I feel you on that. So as for me, of course, at Charles Skaggs on the Twitter machine, at Charles Skaggs on the Instagram. Facebook, of course, at Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio. And my blog of geeky things, if I can get the button to work.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here, Next Stop Everywhere, Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, etc., all kinds of comic book sci-fi news. Going to be working on my Shazam movie review here shortly, probably, post that. And news of my other podcasts. The Titan Talk, the Titans podcast that I do with Jesse Jackson, one of my co-hosts here, and also Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast they do with Sam Sprouse, wife of comic book artist Chris Sprouse, where we talk about all things David Lynch, Twin Peaks, etc., etc. So,
You ever think about recording that spiel?
I try to mix it up a little bit, so it's not so stilted, but
Oh my God, no!
But sometimes
got a
you're
rhythm. I've got the rhythm memorized.
but sometimes I have to remember. I do the rhythm thing because like to help me remember it all, because like I don't want to forget, but
It's got like a jingle rhythm to it,
yeah,
you know?
like you maybe I need to do like one of those videos where you put like a like a backbeat to it, and like
Oh no.
or maybe some auto tune. Yeah, no, that's
Oh
not good.
God.
Yeah, that would be horrible, wouldn't it? Please don't do that.
Somebody's gonna do it now.
Think of humanity, people, please. You don't want me singing. So next time in Next Stop Everywhere, since Paul was asking, we're going to talk about the greatest show in the galaxy. The galaxy. If you remember that story.
Now, I'm guessing is this a classic?
This is a classic story. This is one from the Sylvester McCoy era from 1988, the 25th anniversary of Doctor Who era. And
Now I'm gonna guess just from the title that it has something to do with like a circus, but only on a galactic level.
it's like a space circus. It's called a psychic circus. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Ah,
But a very special guest companion, because for joining us for the first time on Next Stop Everywhere is my Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast co-host, Zan Sprouse, who is the one who actually suggested this story. And going to get Zan not talking Twin Peaks for once. We're going to talk Doctor Who. So if you follow us on Ghostwood, you kind of know what you're in for. But I'm going to try to keep it roughly to an hour or so. And we'll see how it goes. So fingers crossed. And but it's going to be a lot of fun, because I've been dying to talk some Doctor Who with her, and especially dying to talk some 80s Doctor Who, because we haven't had that on the podcast for a long time. And I'm 80s Doctor Who guy, so this is cool. Can't wait to talk about her favorite companion, and one of my favorites, Sophie Aldred, as Ace as well. So it should be a lot of fun. So please come on back for that. And that's going to be episode 139. And other than that, everybody, thank you so much for listening. And sorry to keep it a little long, but I had so much fun talking to Christine, it kind of got away from me. So, Christine, any final thoughts before we head out?
No, just to take care, everybody, and thank you for listening.
Yep, and thank you, Christine, for being a part of the podcast. We always love having you here, and you make everything so much fun, and I really enjoy talking to you. So thank you so much. Always
Thank
great.
you, Charles. Thank you for having me.
Welcome back anytime you want. All right, so everybody, come on back. Greatest show in the galaxy, and we'll see you next time right here on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Bye, everybody.